千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. The story is called The Prayer. Once upon a time, in ancient China, the emperor told his ministers that he wished to visit a temple to offer prayers to the Buddha. One of the ministers, who was adept at flattery, said, "Oh, your majesty does not need to visit the temple." "Is that so?" The emperor was surprised at being contradicted. "Why not?" The minister bowed. He said, "The essence of the Buddha is the compassionate heart. Your majesty is constantly worried about the common people out of pure compassion. Therefore, your majesty is already a living Buddha. Therefore, your majesty, you do not need to visit the temple." "Interesting," said the emperor. "That reminds me of a story. Let me share it with you. It goes like this. Once there was a devout Buddhist who had only one wish in his life, and that was to see the Guanyin Bodhisattva. He traveled to many places and studied many sutras, looking for a way to find her. After years of effort, he finally succeeded. At a holy place far from home, the Bodhisattva appeared before him in a blaze of heavenly glory. He fell to his knees in awe. Guanyin asked him, "Why have you come such a long way to look for me?" The man said, "Merciful Guanyin, I only wish to ask you a question." "Very well," Guanyin said. "Go ahead and ask." The man said, "When I am in trouble, I pray to you and ask you for help. Do you also pray when you feel troubled?" "Yes," Guanyin replied. The man said, "To whom do you pray?" Guanyin replied, "I pray to the Guanyin Bodhisattva." "But you are the Guanyin Bodhisattva. Why do you pray to yourself?" Guanyin said, "Because it is far better to ask yourself for help than to ask someone else." Guanyin smiled and then disappeared in a blaze of heavenly glory. The emperor said to his ministers, "What I have learned from the story I just told you is that the Buddha lives in the heart. When we go to the temple to pray, we are in fact praying to ourselves and asking ourselves for help. That is why I shall override your objection and proceed to the temple today. The end. So this story is about prayer. With this story, the first thing that I want to bring to your attention is that there are more ways to think about prayer than what we usually see. Typically, the most common understanding of prayers is to request divine assistance externally from an external source. Please help me. I'll be good if you help me. We typically see that. So the emperor highlights the alternative, which is similar to the common expression we're all very familiar with. God helps those who help themselves. This is the level beyond the most common. It's the level where one begins to see the reasons for requesting self-assistance directed internally, directly toward oneself. In that mode of thinking, the prayer becomes a way for oneself to focus on the problem and think about the things you can do to work toward solution. So we're using different words, but we're saying the same thing. Praying to oneself or to the Buddha within is similar to Tao cultivators staying on the path. And when we pray to the Buddha or the Guanyin Bodhisattva, it is about compassion. It is about learning to be compassionate. Therefore, praying to the Buddha is learning from the Buddha to become more like the Buddha as a self-reminder. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. There's more than the typical way of thinking about prayers. And when we talk about staying on the path, this is the similar approach for Tao cultivators by making use of that metaphor, walking the path through the forest. It's about being self-sufficient, which can become important because we all know there's going to be times when help is not necessarily available. We've all heard about or experienced firsthand the times when there's no cell signal while hiking in the woods. We're all familiar with that. And the consequence of thinking about prayers this way is that when you direct that problem, remember, God helps those who help themselves. When you direct that request internally, then assistance is assured. And when you travel on the path and stay on the path, the protection is a natural trait of the path itself. For the emperor, the main point is that prayers to a deity may, for whatever reason, go unanswered. But the same prayer directed to oneself will definitely not go unnoticed. Doing something about it is entirely up to you. For the Tao cultivator, the main point is that staying on the path is a measure of protection from the dangers of the forest. To stay on the path, the decision to do that is entirely up to you. So the emphasis is on you. This story comes from the book, The Tao of Success, The 5 Ancient Rings of Destiny. And I think it's a good way to help us understand the words of Lao Tzu speaking about the Tao. Listen to it, it cannot be heard. It is called noiseless. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.